Okay, thank you. And thank you for joining us today. We are now over a month into the RFA that was issued by the New York State Department of Health for the Statewide Healthcare Facility Transformation Program Phase 3. And we thought it would be a good time to provide some information in terms of the elements that we're looking at in terms of having a successful RFA submission. Today is November 22nd. Questions have been submitted to the state with regard to the RFA, and they are due to be released on November 30th. And we'll have another webinar shortly after that release to discuss any new items that come out of the Department of Health at that point. The deadline currently is January 12th, 2022. And a very, very short time frame. And there's a lot of work to be done, both with regard to the successful elements and in addition, making sure that all elements and logistics are taken care of. We can go to the next slide. I've broken this down into two areas of concern with regard to submitting a successful application. The first is basically the granular items that need to be submitted. As indicated here, stage 1 of the review will be undertaken by DOH, and they will be weeding out those applications that have not fully addressed all of the items that they are seeking to review, as well as some of the individual information that needs to be submitted. As noted here, and this is straight from the RFA, applications that are missing material elements may be eliminated from further review. So there will be many, many applications, and it is very, very critical that all of the kind of low-hanging fruit in terms of the items that are requested in stage 1 review should be attended to early on. Part of that is getting pre-qualified on the grants gateway, which can take some time. So if any of you have not been pre-qualified, I would do that immediately. Stage 2 of the review, where we're going to be focusing more of our efforts, looks at the elements that the team at DOH will be reviewing and categorizing as good, acceptable, poor, or not responsive. Obviously, we want to get to a position where we're in good shape and eligible for these projects. Let's go to the next slide. These are the basic evaluation criteria that DOH has issued. There's more that are behind these criteria. But I've highlighted the areas that, from past practice, they specifically want to focus on. Integration of healthcare services, long-term sustainability of the eligible applicant, and that's the entity that's going to be applying for the grant, or preservation of essential health services in the community and or the community served by the applicant. Second is the addition of being aligned with the district delivery system reform incentive payment programs. Identifying the community need. One of the most important aspects of winning a grant is to show that there is a defined community need for the project that's being put forward. That the project benefits Medicaid enrollees and uninsured. The target population to be served by this grant opportunity is the Medicaid population and the uninsured. Just stepping back a minute, I think it's good to assess why the state, has issued a round 3. And basically, they are seeking to support an infrastructure of care delivery in the state. So they're looking at ensuring across the spectrum of providers, those providers that are essential to meeting this core need with respect to Medicaid enrollees and the uninsured. A second aspect is to advance the goals of the Medicaid program, part of which is DSRIP and DSRIP 2.0 and the waiver program that the state of New York has applied for the successor to the DSRIP program. The area involving potential risk to patient safety and welfare, when you look at that, it goes to rebuilding, modernizing your physical plant and or developing new capital projects that will continue good quality of care. So if there is a physical plant that is in need of repair, or if there is a modernization of physical therapy or other programs that will meet a continued need, that is what is behind ensuring that the risk to patient safety and welfare would be addressed. As you go through the application, again, we want to look at what resonates, what will resonate with DOH. And they've given us some information in the application itself. In particular, with regard to the elderly and geriatric population, older Americans, the application or the RFA indicates that patient-centered approaches will be given higher priority. And they actually refer to a program involved what's called the 4 M's, what matters, mobility, medication, mentation. And all of these are designed to ensure that patient-centered care is provided to this population. That is considered to be a good preventative in terms of rehospitalizations and preventative care. Another focus is the Medicaid redesign team and the continued efforts involving DSRIP objectives, a large measure of which is social determinants of health, population health, and care coordination. And we understand that these are capital projects, but there must be a link with regard to the capital needs of the application itself and the program itself, and how once the capital needs are met and a transformation takes place with regard to the eligible applicant, how is that going to address population health, care coordination, and the efforts of the state to integrate social determinants of health within healthcare delivery? We have seen over the past 10 years or so a movement to unsilo healthcare. We are still in the grips of a siloed ecosystem. And DSRIP was designed to unsilo that to the extent that it can. So as you're looking, with regard to your own particular needs, either on the hospital side, the nursing home side, community-based organizations, all across the spectrum, the drive is to get to a transformation where all healthcare providers will be considered to be part of the ecosystem. So the infrastructure that the state is striving for is a continuum of care. Some of the core areas, and Gabriel Oberfield will get into this more, what will get you over the threshold is a good survey of your own community-based need, along with letters of support from other organizations that are involved with that need. I think that is one of the key elements of success, is really buttressing and fortifying how your project will meet that particular need. Let's go to the next slide. Another co-equal element is a sustainable future. And what we mean by a sustainable future is ensuring that your organization, as a result of receiving the grant, will be in a better place in order to meet that need. What we've done in past grant proposals is prepare a before and after of the financial cash flow of an organization, looking at the cash flow situation as it exists today, and then developing and projecting a cash flow projection of a transformed organization with very, very specific elements that would lead to that transformation. So the capital needs and the non-capital needs in this case may be debt retirement, need to be linked to how your organization will attain sustainability for itself in terms of servicing that community need. Go to the next slide. Okay, so that provides a summary of some of the key elements of a successful RFI submission. I'm going to hand it over to Gabriel Oberfield, who has recently joined our firm from the Greater New York Hospital Association and Continuing Care Leadership Coalition, with many years of experience in the grant world and in the implementation of grants with respect to VAP and other programs that the state has initiated. Gabe, at this point, if you could provide your comments.
I am delighted to be with all of you. I come, as Raul noted, most recently from the Greater New York Hospital Association family, where, among other activities I was connected with, was the build out of a more than $200 million suite of VAP projects that involved comfortably 24 different providers. And so with that experience, I look forward to guiding bond clients around some of these same types of questions that necessarily the state needs answers to, in order to see applications through successfully. And so, Raul, during your comments, you noted a few different places where you indicated the state has an interest in understanding an organization's particular positioning, as well as the value that it adds. I don't think we can underscore enough just how important it is to, in the application, really distinguish how an organization, through the receipt of whether it's funding for new programs or through debt relief, not only is improving its own position, but really contributing to that conversation around, well, how does this make the delivery of healthcare within a community all the richer and more sustainable? It all ties to those elements of both DSRIP and more broadly moves toward value-based payment reform, which have really been part of our healthcare ecosystems conversation easily for the last decade, and that the state, through the application, has signaled is important here. And so not only should an applicant be, again, distinguishing what the application will do for its own institution, but ideally also in the application calling out the ties to those other community organizations that it has reached to. And Raul, you mentioned letters of support as one way of manifesting that. All the more just really building in that texture, that sense of how this application will make a difference in the healthcare delivery environment, I think is rather critical, because the state has limited dollars here to invest. Overall, there are about $200 million left within the funding pool through this round that the state has announced, and about 23 million of those dollars are earmarked at a minimum for residential healthcare facilities, long-term care, another 530,000 to community-based providers. So in the end, the state is expecting a large volume of applicants, and these applications need to be distinctive. They really need to call out why they're different.
Right, yeah, exactly. We have been, and Catherine Gracios has worked with me on a variety of DSRIP matters over the last year. Catherine's also a new member to our team, with us for about a year now, but we've been heavily involved in sustainability arising out of DSRIP, and the ability to structure a system where all participants will be able to meaningfully participate in value-based payment initiatives, which is a core concept of the state, a core goal. So again, to the extent that a program will assist in the facility or the organization being a part of that future state, as DOH has described it. This is not just about the transformation grant. I mean, the transformation grant is what is important to the state. What's important to your organization is your own sustainability, your own mission. And a part of this exercise, undertaking a review of sustainability, community need, how you integrate or have not been integrating with other sectors is something that is valuable to the organization. It's important, it's critical, to organizations to have. So it is important that it properly describe right from the executive summary all the way through how it's going to meet, that project is going to meet the goals of the state.
Raul, let me just add a few more observations to complement that helpful context. To begin, you have mentioned before how DSRIP has set a frame. We don't know exactly what will come as the state pursues about another $17 billion in the next round of DSRIP that it's negotiating with the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. But what we do know is that the state feels deeply committed to building on the 5 years of investment and about $8 billion that went into healthcare delivery reform that concluded in as much as the first round ended in March of 2020. And so the application is sprinkled throughout, if that's the right term, with references to DSRIP. And it's very much going to be important for applicants to be responsive and to think about how do these projects as proposed really adhere to the core principles of DSRIP, which included at its very highest level, trying to reduce avoidable hospital use by 25% across the state, but also driving efficiency and cost measures and doing that across the Medicaid environment, thinking similarly about ways to enhance patient experience and have measurable differences in quality outcomes, and building those linkages across healthcare delivery that Raul, you've referred to. And so in the applications that any of you may be contemplating, really paying attention to those dynamics will be critical. And just a quick note on age-friendly health systems. This is new in this round of applications, specifically, there hasn't been this attention afforded in rounds 1 and 2 to what it is to be responsive to those 4 M's that Raul mentioned. I'll note that in my own experience, before joining the Greater New York family, I was in New York City government where during the Bloomberg administration, we built age-friendly New York City, which was an effort to connect government agencies to essentially the same kinds of principles that are described here. And for many, it's already part and parcel of what it is to deliver good and quality healthcare, particularly those of you that are focused on long-term care and home and community-based services as just examples, where these principles are already very much inherent in how you approach your work. But making sure that in the application we're able to elevate those elements is going to be, I think, as well, a place of differentiation that'll be important.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're nearly at the bottom of our webinar. We did not get into the capital versus non-capital projects. There's a variety of other nuances here that are set forth in the application. Non-capital costs such as debt retirement or even potentially working capital needs for a new program that might be envisioned are to be part of a separate aspect of the application as opposed to capital needs, which could be renovation, build out of new facilities, It could be equipment. It could even be, in certain cases, health information technology. That could be instrumental, in a particular project. And there is, if there are multiple projects, the state also wants to know, what is your priority? Again, there's only so much money. It is to be divided on a fair, basis geographically. So again, there's many competing factors here that the reviewing team at DOH will be assessing. But I think if you hit the core of especially community need and buttressing that up in terms of your own survey of the community, physicians in your community, organizations, especially community-based organizations within your community, other healthcare institutions that you have affiliations with, your sustainability and the sustainability of your project, and how that's going to sustain the infrastructure that the state wishes to put forward, and then including the segues over to DSRIP and over to the 4 M's, of patient-centered care for the older Americans. Those are the key takeaways at this point. This is an initial webinar. We're going to have more specific information with regard to changes as the frequently asked questions are issued by DOH after November 30th. And we would hope that everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. And that is the end of our program today. Thank you very much.